So today I'm at a very special garden. This is Stephen Cantu's garden, who is a master gardener, and he's also Jacques' girlfriend's dad. And Jacques' been telling me about this place for a long time, but quite honestly, I think he undersold it because I see a massive expanse of gorgeous permaculture orchard back here. There's a raised bed garden over there. So let's get into it and go meet Stephen. So I am here with Steve, who I actually met through Jacques, our resident garden hermit. It's actually his girlfriend's dad. And I've been wanting to come over for a long time. Jacques kept telling me about the garden. And of course, as you can see, it is an absolutely epic garden here, Steve. And I'd love to kind of go through. This is a massive space and it's extremely productive. And I see you have some beds here. Why don't we start out here and kind of talk about what's going on with these beds? Because I see some modifications that I don't think I've ever seen before.
What I did for accessibility is to bring them up a little taller. So I built this 2x6 frame with treated materials. I tend to stay away from treated materials, but in this case, it's not touching food, it's not touching hands, so it's fine. The other modification you see on the top here is the barrier to keep rats out. And
oh, it's the rats, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We have a real problem here with all the vegetation and all the edible foods that we had rat problems. But the funny thing is, once I put this up, the rats kind of disappeared. So anyway, I built this frame, and one of the things you notice that the doors on this open out like that. The reason I did that is because one of the injuries that happens with kids and adults is when doors that are up high come slamming down, or if they have to be brought up, then it's physically more work. So by doing this, it's quite easy for anybody to come up here and simply open this up and so on.
This is a great modification. So something we've been testing out, Steve, are just like different ways to protect the top of a metal bed like this. And the challenge is always, if you protect it, then how do you access it? And it seems like this solves that pretty well.
And the other thing is, for a guy like me who has, luckily I have long arms. And I can reach in 2 feet here easily. And from the other side, for the 4-foot width, it's easy. And as you come up here, Kevin, and you see that you don't have to lean down to reach in.
I can get in there. I do only because I'm pretty tall, but I do, and it's really easy to access. And I'll tell you this, for these brassica crops, I would have loved having a cover like this this past season. And then you have a couple more around this pool area, so a couple more modified birdies beds, basically.
Same thing, brought them up high. And then I was getting ready to build covers for these two, and my wife said, no, that one's enough. So here we are, we got it.
And have you noticed a difference, just out of curiosity, on pest pressure on these brassicas versus the covered ones?
When the rats were here, yes. But lately, no. No.
Amazing.
Well,
guys, this is quite literally maybe a 1/20th of your garden, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
If that. So why don't we head on out this way? And maybe we'll go around the back.
Actually, I think we'll go this way.
Okay, let's go this way.
And then we'll go through that gate and then around the house.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So we got a few onions in here and some lettuces.
So you got the grow bags on, little drip irrigation action here.
That's right. Yeah.
Little mini gate on this guy, which is spring levered here.
Yeah, that's kind of a little cheesy thing that I was working on. And
hey, it works though.
It's flimsy, but it works.
It works. I mean, it totally works. Especially if, you're a journeyman carpenter, so if someone doesn't have that level of skill, maybe this is a little more their speed right here.
I just threw that together. A little fruit here that people find.
You got a finger lime.
Yeah. This is an Australian finger lime.
Can I pick one?
Well, yeah. Here's one right here.
Okay. I want to show. I want to actually explode it out for people. I'll take this one. So this is a plant that I actually have at my house. I think it got really popular on the internet for a while. Because it was called the caviar lime. But take a look at this. It's this caviar-like appearance to the interior pulp. So it's separate. It's not like a normal citrus where you have that classic pattern. It literally is like little bits of caviar. And then the flavor.
Very limey, but different. They're not easy to grow.
I've struggled. I've struggled.
If you water it too much, it doesn't like it. If you fertilize it too much, it doesn't like it. A bunch more citrus here because they like the heat. A few more brachias in here.
There we go. So this, I guess, Steve, would you call this area just your container garden zone?
Yeah, pretty much. This is my wife's projects mostly in here.
Steve, do you mind telling us a little bit about the property, like the size of the space? when you moved in here, how long you've been working on the garden?
I moved in this property, which is just over 2 acres, in 1999, the end of 1999. And our first project was to remodel the house and make it accessible. Well, those projects are never 100% done, but we pretty much got that to a pretty much done spot, even though 20 years later, I'm kind of thinking about, more work in there. And then I started working on the property, and the general idea was to have the greenness close to the house, and then slowly as I moved out would be more of the drought tolerant cactuses of different sorts and so on.
Sure. All right, so now we are getting to the front of Steve's property here. Why don't I pop behind and I'll let Steve lead the show here, and I'll probably pepper you with some questions, Steve.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's do it. So as we move down this spot, Steve, it's obviously on a pretty severe slope.
Yep.
As we go over time, I think any gardener would find it a challenge to kind of landscape and design this space. So especially with, being a wheelchair user, how did you think about designing this spot to actually be able to use it well?
Well, when I first moved in here, from right here down towards that plum tree was a small ramp and then steps. Obviously that wouldn't work. So we removed that, and we then zigzagged these trails through here and then put down decomposed granite on top of that. Yeah.
All right, well, why don't we start winding on down? So you're going to see all sorts of different fruits and trees and some really interesting techniques as far as how Steve's pruned his trees specifically for his own use case.
So on this citrus right here, which is it's turned out to be a pretty good citrus. It's a obviously an orange tree and a navel orange tree, and we keep it low and we keep it cleaned out so it has easy access. But this one, basically, it's set up so I can get to the fruit, obviously with a reaching device to get in there.
Are you using one of those fruit, like a classic fruit picking type of device, or?
Oh, I wish I brought it out. But there's these handheld pruners. They're called pruners that are reachers.
Yeah.
And then on the cutting head of it, it has 2 little clamps. So you can come in here and cut this at the same time, get a hold of it.
Ah.
And it works out quite well.
Look at these bird of paradises, though. These are massive. Most people just have these as houseplants in their home, Steve.
Oh, really?
These are like a popular New York apartment houseplant right now, believe it or not. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, you better have tall ceilings. And
I mean, look up. Yeah, look up. It's absolutely massive.
This was here when I moved in.
Yeah. Alrighty, we're winding on down the first turn here. It's almost like switchbacks.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah. One of the things I tried to do is make the pathways wider, and that's what I preach in my presentations about accessibility in the garden, is wider paths, so that if you have a wheelbarrow or a bucket of tools or another person working with you, you have room to operate without people tripping and getting in each other's way. So you'll see pathways a little wider and even more so down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm noticing something right up here, Steve. This irrigation outlet that you've got to your right is kind of plumbed up high.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. So the idea is for somebody like me, it can easily reach it, turn it off and on, do what you want.
Yeah.
Or an able-bodied person doesn't have to bend over so much or get down on their knees and get into the ground.
Quite honestly, I think I would prefer it this way.
Yeah, my original idea was to build some sort of box over this to cover it up.
Yeah.
But as you can see, I got enough work
There's
here.
a lot going on here, Steve. This is a absolutely expansive garden. So what trees are we walking by right now, actually?
This is a Valencia orange. It was here when I moved in. Citrus in this area live very long.
Yeah.
There's a lemon tree here in Bonita that's over 100 years old, I was told.
Wow.
This has been here 20 years. I should say I've been here 20 years and it was well established, so I would think this is over 40 years old.
Yeah.
So I have a green gage here, which is really a beautiful fruit. And if the summers are real warm, then the fruit will ripen quicker and be sweeter. Pride of Madeira over here that draws, when it flowers like this on a warm day, all sorts of pollinators.
You'll never see more bees than on this plant right here.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's just gorgeous.
Insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this rose here, actually. I'm noticing this. I'm starting to get into roses myself. And this one is very impressive.
This is an old world rose. It's one of the, and I wish I could remember the name. I'm not a rose guy. Quite frankly, I put it in and kind of forgot about it. And then this is well over 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, it started just being more prolific.
Yeah.
And, but it's an old style rose and it's not a traditional one. So I just let it grow.
Yeah, I mean, it looks incredible right now. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
it does.
covered in flower.
Yeah. So, you know, right next to the strawberry guava, and then over here a lemonberry guava, and then over here a 3-in-1 poulat.
And what fruit is that, Steve?
This is a poulat.
Pluot.
Poulat.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is an apricot and a plum.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like a 60-40 mix.
Yeah. Okay, we're on our second turn here.
And to the left, we have a Santa Rosa plum that's doing quite well, and it has a very nice fruit on it. More roses, more irises, and then look at this guy here. Nice iris.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. There used to be a fellow here in town that lived just around the corner called the Iris Man, and he propagated these, and we bought a bunch of them from him.
Whatever happened to the iris, man?
He got tired of paying the high water prices here in San Diego, and he moved somewhere up in the Oregon region.
Got it. Yeah.
So, in the garden, things come and go. Unfortunately, this was one of my favorite plums, and it got some sort of blight on it, and so it looks like it's going to be coming out if it doesn't revive. But you know, unfortunately, that's what happens.
Sometimes it just is what it is in the garden, you know?
Sometimes things pass,
Yeah.
you know? So be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see some of my favorite plants coming up here. Huge pomegranate, it looks like.
Yeah.
And then also a fig. And I know my eyes are spotting a different treatment of the pomegranate and fig down there a little bit. So you've got sort of a more free-form structure of these two.
Yes.
And then down there, I guess we'll see in a second, quite a genius espalier technique.
Yeah. We try to do that for accessibility.
Yeah. Why don't we take a look, Steve? There's a fork in the road here.
Yes.
And this way looks kind of interesting. It looks almost like a succulent forest of sorts.
Well, this area was lined with pepper trees and a china berry and so on. So I'm slowly working on this, and I brought in these foxtail agaves, which I gathered around the property, and along with these dinner plate anoleums, along with the jade plants, I did the same with that. And it's slowly coming along. I haven't gotten to the point where it's even close to done, but it's slowly being worked on. But the joy of this area is it's a lot cooler here on this part of the property.
This dappled light that just looks
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. And the way the light pours through the trees is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so at one point I wanted to have a sitting area back in here and so on.
I was about to say it looks like a great spot to have breakfast or to like read a book or have a nap or something like that. Yeah.
Well, you know, I had a number of different gardeners help me here, and one of the men that was working for the previous owner knew the property, and he was here for me for a few years. But I discovered was what he knew of the property was where to take naps, and it was down in here.
There's enough spots to hide for sure when you're on the clock.
Yeah. So, okay, another left-hand turn here, and unfortunately, my Hollywood plum caught that blight also.
Oh no.
And it looks like it's pretty much had it.
You can tell. Look at how sort of flexible that wood is. It kind of, the whole tree moves when you move one branch.
Yeah. So
makes me feel like
what
the whole
I
thing's
did
dry.
was I took my knife and just made little cuts in here to see what the derma was doing, and no, it doesn't look like it's going to make it.
Sure.
So, well, you know, that's
Good
why.
spot to put something else though.
Yeah.
A couple artichokes on the left side here. One of my favorite plants I've been putting in lately.
Yeah, I had two different varieties, and this was I believe the more drought-tolerant variety. And they taste good. A couple times I've had them, and they tasted terrible. Other times they're wonderful. So, you know, that's the way it goes. Yeah. Jock and my daughter gave me this gift for my birthday a couple years ago, and it's coming along nicely. You know,
What's that guy
there? A nice
there?
cherry tree.
Cherry.
Yeah, and I love cherries. They can be difficult.
Cherries in San Diego, I've almost been too scared to try.
Well, this is low chill variety. And it's new on the market, I would say probably 4 or 5 years, maybe longer, but I was told it was a newer variety.
Steve, the thing that I'm being drawn to right now, as you can probably imagine, is this massive apple tree to our right, which is probably the biggest fruit tree spread and height-wise that I've seen so far on the property. And it's an apple, which again is kind of a challenging crop to grow here in San Diego.
The Anna, which this is, grows fairly well.
Yeah.
If a person wishes, they can espalier these, and they work out quite well. We tend to keep it down low so it'd be easier to maintain the fruit. But it has 2 or 3 crops a year.
Wow.
And it does quite well. I've been very fortunate. I bought it from a nursery out in Habu that has closed down, and it's about maybe 18 years, somewhere in there. And and that's, once I planted it, there was no stopping it. So here on my left coming up is a sapote. These trees get very large, and we cut it back this year just to make it more manageable.
Yeah, I can see up at the very, very top, you've sort of topped off those top limbs.
Yeah, I kind of think my gardener I had do that may have done a little too much on it.
Yeah.
But it'll come back. These trees get very large. They're in the citrus family, and you treat them kind of that way, And here on my left is a blood orange that has some nice fruit on it. And they're a little small this year. Peach tree that was a volunteer from one that died. Very nice fruit on it. That's why I left it here. But they're difficult here. I've had difficulties with peaches here. But there's always something that a property does better at.
Yeah.
I always like to take advantage of where I have irrigation. So I put some herbs down in here, and there's some sages and some thyme and so on. I had more, but they tend to go and come also. I also had a bunch of artichokes in here, and they disappeared and kind of moved down. You see some jumping up in there.
So now we're getting to the dividing line almost, Steve, between your perennial permaculture orchard type of approach and a succulent garden. But before we get to those succulents, you have some incredibly interesting looking fig trees here.
Yep. I took those fig trees and planted them through cuttings. One thing about figs is that they are amazingly easy to grow. Anybody can take a cutting from a fig tree. So you just basically cut this off right here. You let the cutting heal over, so it's just dry. Take a paper towel, wet it, squeeze it out so it's just damp, wrap it, and what I did was put it into a small greenhouse, I called it, but a plastic box, as you get at the container stores, so big, and then you let it sit. And I did 20 or 30, and I'm not exaggerating here, but every one of them sprouted.
Wow, 100%.
100%.
And here's what's interesting. We just saw some figs earlier up on the slope. This obviously looks a lot different in its structure, and you're using the Espalier technique.
Yes, the Espalier is set up for guys who want easy access to the plant. This way, that way, and so on. So I can get up here, right up to the plant, pick fruit. Obviously, it's a little taller than I like.
Yeah.
But I can easily get in there.
Did you initially have these on wires and trained them that way then?
Yes, exactly right. And I trained them that way. And anything that stuck out like this, I would cut off. Now I'm leaving this here because it's easy to get to the fruit here. And this one, that one, the pomegranates, and the black fig at the end, all the same. So they're easy to take care of, they're easy to get to the fruit. And for somebody tall like you, Kevin, you can get to the whole tree.
Even for someone like me, Steve, with my space, I'm on basically a sixth of the size land that you have. And so me just being able to espalier and reshape a tree means I can plant more different varieties.
That's right.
I just have more space.
Yeah. I originally had my vineyard in here, and I had 50, maybe a little more, Barbera grapes in here. And because I'm gone in the summer quite a bit, I wasn't able to maintain them, and they just slowly went away. So I decided, I forget the grapes, and now raspberries and passion fruit.
Yeah.
One of the other things that people don't think about, and this is a work in progress, is the path of travel around your garden. And it's real important to have a wide path that's easy to maintain and a smooth path. This is the base I put down is ground up concrete, which is a road-based material. In a couple of years, I'll put down some decomposed granite on this, and it'll be 2 to 3 inches thick and this whole width. And that will make a much easier rolling medium for me. So on the left, we got the pomegranates, and the general approach here is anything that sticks out, I cut off. And then we round off the top, so we're keeping it narrow. And, so that's what that is.
Do you notice, Steve, that on these Espalier palms versus the one we saw earlier, is there a difference in production of fruit?
Yes. The Espalier is a little less, but you can get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the trade-off.
That's the trade-off.
Sure.
I also have on that next trellis back here, I planted kiwi. And there's the male, because you need a male for every 3 or 4 females. But I planted 4 females here, and every time I planted, they disappeared. So I don't know what happened.
Huh.
And I don't want to keep spending money on plants that disappear.
Yeah.
So I just left the male and I just planted the cherries over here.
Yeah, well, let's swing around and take a look at it.
One of the other things that people don't think about in gardens is having a place to just sit. To me, that's the best part of the garden, is to sit. So I got a bunch of old wine barrels and I took them apart and made these chairs.
Oh, no way. That's a wine barrel chair.
That's a wine barrel chair.
Huh.
Yeah. And they've been out here for 5 or 6 years. I had them in the back, and they're starting to show their age. But
that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the point. They're oak, French oak.
Let's take a look at one of my favorite fruits to eat, especially here in San Diego, this passion fruit vine that you're basically growing it almost like a grape.
Yes.
Because this used to be your vineyard, you were saying.
That's right. I planted, I think, 4 passion fruit here. A couple of my friends said, "What, are you crazy?" And I think I was, because these things are so prolific that once you get them established, which takes no time at all, they just go. And we're cutting this thing back weekly. This thing will grow easily a foot in a 5-day week.
Yeah.
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 They are amazing prolific, and there's no fruit on it now.
I do see some flowers.
Yeah.
Yep.
They will shortly start pouring the fruit out. And basically what I do is I cut them in half and then scoop out the inside, put it on a little sieve, and then just let it drip and take a spoon and so on. And you get juice.
Yeah.
And add a little sugar if you like, and it's really delicious. Okay, so we're sitting under my little shady area here. Good place to take a nap. And because of the way the wind blows here, in the afternoons and during the day, it may be 10 or 15 degrees cooler here than it is back by the pool area. So we come out here to relax lots of times. But one of my neighbor's homes down the street there, eucalyptus blew over, and I went down there and got it. And we cut it up and built this structure. And if you notice, everybody likes the bark beetle that was underneath the bark, obviously, and made all these interesting patterns on the wood. So, this will probably be good for 10 or 15 years before it starts falling apart. But for the moment, it's doing well.
Working.
And I'm going to train these grapes to come up over the top, and I think it'll be a nice area just to sit in and enjoy the afternoon.
So we are now moving out of the edible garden and into almost a, dare I call it, botanical level garden here, Steve.
If you like. Yeah, this garden here, I was very fortunate. A friend of mine that propagates South African and Madagascar and Canary Island plants decided to give me a bunch of plants. Also, there are some Baja California plants in here also, and some South African plants. So I have this mixture, and one of the ideas is that when you put a garden together, you kind of put together plants that like the same amount of water, the same amount of light, and so on. And I kind of did that maybe sometimes, yeah, with a lot of liberal, what do you want to call it?
A little spice, a little extra spice.
A little bit of kind of stretching the envelope a little bit. So in here I have I just love barrows, and I didn't show you, Kevin, but I'm propagating barrel cactuses from seed. Mm-hmm. And maybe when we get further down, I'll show you some of that. But it's quite easy to do, but you need a lot of time to do it. For example, you see the big barrel cactus over there?
Sure.
I got that from a gentleman who received that as a gift, and it was about the size of a ping pong ball in 1975, I believe he said.
Wow.
So from 75 to now, and a well-cared plant, that's what you get.
I mean, that's actually quite a bit bigger, but also it's 40 plus years old.
Closer to 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on through here. I think this is a succulent and cacti lover's dream garden. And I confess, Steve, I don't know too much compared to my knowledge of edibles and annual edibles specifically. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, show off some of these guys for us.
Ferox, aloe tree, if I got that right. This one over here is a bitter aloe. That's what the Zulu called them. Don't ask me to give the Zulu name. But this plant was called a bitter aloe. You know, when I was in South Africa and touring the gardens down there, they had a botanic name, a common name, and the disease it cured.
Yeah.
Or what it was used for medicinal purposes. This bitter aloe was used when a woman wanted her kid to stop nursing.
Huh.
So it was applied, and then the kid would get that bitter flavor and then move away.
That's very clever.
Yeah. So, you know, indigenous people find neat things to do with what they have to work with.
Yeah.
And all of these plants probably have some sort of medicinal purpose or a purpose to be used somehow in the environment or in the personal needs or whatever. This guy over here is a plant out of central Mexico, and it's a putia tree. Where the putias around here will grow out, this guy grows up.
The paddle structure is also different than our classic prickly pear as well.
Well, that's right. Prickly pear and putias. The prickly pear is the gringo name.
Sure.
The Mexicans, Spaniards named it puntia because little tiny points on it. This guy here, the common name would be Madagascar ocotillo. And I can't quite remember the botanical name, but it refers to its height. And it will get about so big around, and it will get 20 feet, maybe taller. This little guy here is
That's a ponytail palm.
Yeah, ponytail palm. Some people refer to elephant foot, but it's out of Baja California.
That's another really popular houseplant. I think what's interesting, Steve, about a Southern California succulent garden is a lot of the stuff that those of us that are in apartments or townhomes are growing as potted plants out here. I mean, that's actually a small ponytail palm compared to some of the ones I've seen.
Oh, the base will get this big.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll get 3 times the height.
Yeah.
The funny thing about this plant, and I was trimming this up yesterday, there's little teeth on here. You can't really feel them, but I cut myself right there. When I pulled it, it just slipped my...
It gets you.
Yeah. So wear gloves when you're working on this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Steve, why don't we cruise on down towards that end point over there?
Okay. I want to show you one plant you may find interesting.
Let's do it.
This plant here, a Peruvian apple, and it puts out a baseball size, if not a little bigger, reddish colored fruit that's edible. Mm-hmm. It tastes kind of close to a kiwi, but it's white inside with little black specks. Tasty, not my most favorite, but it's nice. It'll get a lot larger. So I mentioned earlier that I propagated some barrel cactuses. So what I did was, I just grabbed one of these guys.
Whoa.
Oh, that's a bad one.
Sure.
Let's see if I get a good one. Here we go. So this guy here, you basically open this up, and you see all those seeds? Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the little fruit then.
Yeah.
All cacti seem to have a similar looking fruit.
Similar, yeah. So you take this, and you clean the seeds out, similar to what I've done with tomatoes. So you kind of rinse off the juicy stuff, let it dry out a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I just put it in the soil and a little bit of moisture, and I had a very high amount of germination. And but then it got tough after that. But it takes quite a while to get them to the point where they can be actually put in the ground.
We're back up at the top of the hill in a section of the garden that we haven't shown you yet, which you'll pretty soon see on the Epic Gardening channel. These raspberry trellises is beautiful here, Steve, and you've got some onions and garlic over there. But you know, we see another raised up irrigation system here. You're a wheelchair user with a huge garden, like bigger than most people are probably ever going to accomplish in their life. And I was just personally curious, like, how did you get in a wheelchair in the first place? And then what sort of adaptations did you make to be able to manage this type of space?
Okay, back in 1982, I was your basic, long hair, bearded construction worker.
Yeah.
And I was working on a bridge project in Northern California. And I had a load brought to me via crane, and I fell off the I-beam I was standing on that was about 3 stories up.
Oh.
And I tumbled down and ended up breaking a tibia, compound fracture fibula, fracturing hairline fracture in the pelvis, couple broken ribs, and my back in 3 places. Obviously, that left me a paraplegic. At that point, I remember being in the hospital and just saying to myself, one, if I'm going to survive, I have to redefine what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so what I thought of next was kind of pressing the reset button. How you look at things, how you deal with things, everything. And that took years to develop a new lifestyle. And my wife and I were at a smaller home here in Bonita, and she found this spot, and we bought it, and we started to rehab it, first remodeling the house.
Yeah.
And then I started remodeling the property and landscaping and going on. And yes, my insanity brought us to this point. And so here I have raspberries and blackberries and so on. But you may have noticed, and we talked about this earlier, how I bring up equipment I use, and every few days or few months, depending on the seasons, I fill this up with fertilizer, and then as the systems come on, it automatically fertilizes.
It'll dose it for you.
Yeah, it will dose it. And then I put down a mulch on top of the drip line, so it will help the water sink into the ground and be more available for the plants over a long time.
Yeah.
In my Master Gardener work, I developed a program called FIG, Friendly Inclusive Gardening. So we look at an aging person or a young person who has maybe disabilities, or guys like me, or even people who are unfortunately have cognitive or developmentally disabled. What can we use to make their lives and all the lives of an aging population? So all those things need to be thought out.
Yeah.
And me having this huge, large garden allowed me to look at different aspects of it.
It's almost like a test garden for all these different ideas that you have in a sense. Yeah.
It is. And it is also I guess, a statement of some person's insanity.
Yeah. Well, we all have, as gardeners, we all have some level of insanity of you might be a cactus guy, you might be a fruit guy, you might be an urban gardening guy. And, you have your own brand. I certainly do. Jacques has his own brand of it as well. So, Steve, thank you so much for having us out here. It's been incredible. I've gotten a lot of ideas for my own garden, and hopefully you watching have also gotten some ideas, no matter what your level of ability, age, etc. So thank you so much for having us, Steve.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you, Kevin, for what you do.
Of course.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
If anybody wants information about accessible gardens, I can be contacted through the San Diego Master Gardener website, Speakers Bureau. Just look up Stephen Cantu on the Speakers Bureau.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, all that'll be in the video description, guys, along with everything else. Steve is also a master gardener. So thank you so much for watching. Good luck in the garden, and keep on growing.